Hello and welcome to Love is a Battlefield, the domestic violence podcast. My name's Tilly Moore and today is episode 43. Gosh, we're getting on. Look at us, 43. Anyway, us as in, it's just me. But anyway, welcome. Today is called the No More Rallies Australia episode. And what I'm going to do is explain to anyone in or out of Australia, like international people, like this is for you too, what we did on the weekend here in Australia, because it is so important. And it's happening in other countries too. We're all having rallies, but I think I might be wrong. I am wrong a lot. This was the first time that we got together the same weekend over our whole entire country. Now, if you're not from Australia, you probably have seen one of those globes where we sit at the bottom of the globe, but are we really on the bottom, like space? It took me so long in life just to actually think, hey, maybe Australia's at the top, because who made the top, and the bottom? Really? It's a ball floating in space. We're just all on the ball, but in the atlas, on the world, earth, globes, we are at the bottom. And as you can see when you look at us, it's very big and we have a lot of capital cities. Unfortunately, one of the capital cities, people up there missed out. There was no rally organised there, but it was in every other capital city. And you're like, no more rally. What's a no more rally? Well, no more violence against women. It was a rally about the physical, sexual, financial, psychological, all the violence against women from men, from Australian men in our country. Now, DV is an international issue, but in Australia, it's probably been doing this all over the world too, because I don't know, juju something, but in Australia, we've had a significant, recent, dramatic spike in women being murdered. I think like women have always been murdered. Like when I nearly got murdered and I was held hostage, it didn't make the media. Things don't make the media. When my daughter was raped and they went to court and everything, and my thing went to court, it didn't make the media. There's so much that doesn't hit the media. So I think it also might be a shift that the media is starting to actually report when we get murdered and stuff. But also, no, there has been a massive, massive, massive spike in the amount of women murdered. And I think the thing that really triggered this to happen was what I talked about in the last episode, the Bondi murders, where the man went around looking for women to murder at the shopping centre. So I think that was kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back and allowed an organisation to make the rally saying, hey, we were being murdered in our own homes. We were being murdered going for a jog. A lady was murdered going for a jog recently near her home. A younger man saw her and I'm assuming sexually assaulted her and murdered her, because that's what they usually do, which is horrible. And, so a lady's murdered going for a jog. We're always, like, most murders are in our own home. And now going to the shops, multiple women murdered, and how men aren't stopping. The weekend just gone was when most capital cities all had these rallies and marches. So we rallied and marched. Most of us had signs we held up, and it was just to say no more. It was called the No More Rallies, to say no more violence against women. Do something. Country, do something. Politicians. I hate saying politicians because I just think, most of them are men, right? And we rely on them to do something when they're part of the problem. As you know, that man we talked about 2 episodes ago that raped a woman in the Parliament House, like in where the politicians' little base camp is, he raped her inside there. Many male politicians are misogynists, are very much taking advantage of their white male privilege. I mean, that's how they got those positions in the first place. They're really exuding a lot of the values around that. Our own Prime Minister, there is a clip from yesterday where he gets up and he says, I asked to speak today and I was told not to. And the girl next to him, who's one of the organisers, said, "That's a lie." She said, "No, that's a lie." And he ignored her. Like she said it really, like you can hear it in the clip, like it's really loud. He ignores her, talks over her, and then just continues to read something someone's written for him to say. Now, there was someone in the comments on social media saying, "I was there," and well, they think he did. It was true, like he asked to speak and was told not to. But then people were saying, well, okay, if he was asked to speak and he was told not to, consent, don't. And if he was not asked to speak, like if he was asked to speak and he declined, because they were saying he was asked to speak and he said, "No, thank you, I don't want to speak at that, I'll just turn up." That's what the organisers were kind of implying happened. And then he says, "Oh, I asked if I could speak and you guys said no, and that's a lie." And she's like, "That's a lie." Either way, what a piece of crap. And that is literally what the values of Australian men have right now, like, and a lot of men all over the world. He either was asked not to and disrespected consent and still did it, despite women saying don't do it at our day for us, or he declined to do it, but then gets up and lies and gaslights everyone that, "Oh, no, I asked to. They just said no." I mean, the girl stands next to him, the organizer, and says, "No, that's a lie." And instead of respecting her as a person, because men who are misogynists don't think women are people, he just turns, ignores her, and just talks over her and just starts saying this thing on a piece of paper that someone else has written for him. And it's like, why could he, if that was a man, he would have had to engage and communicate and figure out what was going on probably, but it was just a woman, whatever. What the hell? Like, why did he not turn to her and go, "Oh, no, what do you mean?" And like just work it out and say, "I'm sorry if there was confusion. This is what I heard. Oh, sorry if my team told me this." Like, talk about it. But he just rudely went, "I'm just going to say this." And at other rallies, there were local, like, state premiers who were there, and they reluctantly stayed because on the Saturday there was a premier's like the leader of the state. I guess you might have leaders of states in America and other countries, but we have leaders of states and then like the main leader and all that. I guess that's common sense in most places in the world. But and so there was one on Saturday where a man turned up who was a leader of politics, had his photo taken, took off. And then a girl got up and spoke, who was one of the speakers and organisers, and said, "He came and got a photo and left. Let's call him out for that. And now he's going to have a photo. I was there." And he took off. He didn't even stay for like anything, any part of it. And so on the Sunday because it was Saturday and Sunday, depending on what city you're in. And on the Sunday, you saw all these politic leaders reluctantly looking so miserable there for the whole thing, as long as they had to, standing there going, "Fine, I'll be here for the whole thing." Like, but you can tell every ounce of them did not want to be there because they have likely, okay, this is such an assumption. Oh my gosh, such an assumption. But usually it's like rich people who become politicians. Not all the time. There has been some change, slay, but I would like to assume many politicians went to all-boys schools, rich all-boys schools, and the cultures in those schools are so much worse when it comes to misogyny than, like, say, in a public school. But that's just an assumption of the general kind of old school male politician, that politicians historically, up until now when change is starting, have been the Bruce Lermans of Australia. They've been the privileged upper middle class to upper class, all boys school, pointy leather shoes, pop collars at the clubs, rapey misogynistic types. There's a stereotype. If you are a woman who was heterosexual and grew up in Australia and went through, late teens, 20s, 30s, whatever, however old you are now, and dated a mixture of different men, you'd probably understand that type of stereotype. So that was kind of people who ended up in politics historically. But there is change, and it's slow, and we're impatient. And speaking of change, so what I did was I was abused, obviously, and the perpetrator was dangerous and stuff. So I moved far, 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 far away. But family is in Queensland. So I was in Queensland for their rally a weekend just gone. I went to the Brisbane rally, and there was a speaker there who was a politician. I'm sorry, that was really exciting. Whoa, sorry. You're like, what? What just happened? Are you okay? There was ADHD. I got more excited about the thought and trying to say it. It came out so wrong. There was a politician. So there was a politician there who was female, who said the best freaking speech ever. And that's what politics is changing into. It's now there are women in politics, which there weren't like many, many, many years ago. And now, and obviously at the start, they probably would have tried to let maternalized is misogyny. I was going to say maternalized misogyny, not internalized misogyny. They probably initially wanted women who were internalized misogynists in politics many, many years ago. But now politics is changing. We're voting. We only get the usual couple of options. We don't get to choose who becomes a politician, but it is shifting. And Yvette is her name. I don't know her last name, but whatever, politician. Google Australian politician, Yvette, whatever. Vote for her. She got up and she said the best speech, and she was like shouting. She was so good. On my TikTok, I've got a clip of her. But as you know, with TikToks, people have short attention spans. I'm one of them. And so you got to get to the point on a TikTok. So I only showed like a couple of seconds where she was saying men need to take responsibility. And it was really powerful and really good. And the big message of the day really was, it's not just the abusive men, it's the men, the good, in inverted commas, men who are silent. And I've thought of some men I know that are good men, but when around a misogynistic man saying bad things about women, they wouldn't challenge them. They would just be quiet. They would probably inside think, oh, that's not very nice. But, I want to be accepted by him. I don't want to upset the friendship. I don't want to be confrontational, so I'm not going to challenge that way of thinking and speaking about women. And that was such a huge message of the whole day, was if the good men, the men who don't, and not just say they don't, those ones on social media in the comments, all the not all men in this comments, that they're all guilty, like they're all misogynist, like they're all trying to cling onto that control and power that men have over women. So they're trying to encourage women to be silent by abusing them in the comments. They're trying to silence anyone speaking out for women. And they're getting real nasty in the comments of men who post about violence against women. They're really tearing shreds of them, saying they're weak and they're pussies. It's like, who's the weak one, mate? Clearly you are. But they're just going for everyone because they really are terrified. They're so scared. Men are the most scared creatures. They are so scared. I've never come across anything more scared. Think of a pet that's very scared, or an animal. An animal, you approach it and it runs away because humans are horrible. Think of those scared animals. Men are like that. Men are very scared creatures. And so they're scared of losing the privilege they've had, the power they've had, the reign over women, The whole being able to gaslight women that they must be beautiful for you, they must be sexy, they must suck your nether regions or you will cheat on them and then it will be their fault for not pleasing you. And they must cook for you, clean for you, raise your kids and bring it home 50% of the earnings to pay 50% of the bills. Obviously, because of the pay gap, you'll be paid more, but that extra money is yours for your boats, your motorbikes, your cars, your toys, anything for yourself because you deserve that money. You earned it because you're a man. They don't want to let go of all that. They don't want, but the thing is, they think they're losing something. And I guess they are. They're losing control over women, but they can't see the forest for the trees. They can't see that, like, how bad it's really been and that you're not really losing much by being equal with half of the human population by considering that women are humans. Women are people. By treating them as equal. It's not, all you're losing is the right to abuse women, put down women and control women. Like, do you really need that? So every single negative comment under a woman or a man talking about violence against women, all those TikToks, all those negative comments, they're people who are so scared because they want control over women, females, the female sex of human beings. Because they know they're nothing. Men are the most insecure. We think we're insecure because we're told to paint our faces and remove hair from certain parts of our bodies and always look good. We think we're really insecure, but men are so insecure because I think there is this fear for men that when women are equal, they know how smart we are, how capable we are. They know we're going to be running the world. Beyonce has said, who run the world? Girls. She was pretty future focused with that one. Who run the world, girls. Anyway, when that song came out, I was like, actually, no, men run the world. Like, I don't want men to run the world, but statistically, who run the world? Men. Like, that's how it was when she released that song. But she was hopeful for a different future, which will slowly come. And I can understand that men would be scared because I think, wait, if we can't oppress women, if we can't control them, if we can't convince them that they must do this, this, and this, and this to please us and be our servants and subservient to us, what if they start running the world because they are smarter than us? It's like, don't worry, we can't lift heavy things. You can still lift heavy things. Like, yeah, we can go work out, get some muscles and try and lift heavy things, but you still got the testosterone advantage. So you can still work in trades, but maybe we shouldn't pay a tradesman more than we pay a health professional who's saving lives in a very high stress environment. Maybe we should pay them equal. Maybe someone who goes to uni to get a degree and has people's lives literally in their hands each and every day probably should get paid a little bit more than someone who goes to TAFE and gets paid to learn. Let's just balance things out and make everything equal. But we're not saying pay you less. We're just saying, hey, let's just compare the professions and pay each profession what it's due rather than paying people more because they have a penis. I understand where that came from. If you don't, here it is. Sorry, this tangent's like, fuck it. It's just gone. We're gone. There's no coming back from this situation. So how can you listen to this? How do you do it? You're amazing. You're amazing. I would tune out and be like, what the fuck are you even talking about? Like, the last thing I was tuned into was talking about Yvette, who did a good speech at like the rally. And now, what are we even talking about? And I know, oh no, I'm not going to go there. I'm not I was about to tangent off a tangent, and that's dangerous. Anyone with ADHD, do not tangent off tangents. Then you've tangented too far and bad things happen. So what I was saying was, I believe, this is my theory in my head, that when women first started doing work, obviously women had to do a lot of work during the wars, but when women started doing work just generally, their income was seen as pocket money because men had to have money to feed and raise a family because they had to support a family, because traditionally men earned enough and were able to support a family, buy a house, everything on their one wage, and the woman worked at home and had like 6 kids, clothesline out the back. Yeah, all the works and jokes. So men were paid more because, well, you have to support a whole family. Whereas when a woman went and did a job for so many hours a week because she can't work full time, some did, but that was very frowned upon. My mum had to quit work when she got married. The day she got married, she was fired because you could not work if you were married. That was the literal rule. There were certain jobs apparently you could do, but you couldn't have a full-time job or work, she said. And that was 1969. You could not marry someone. I think it's 1968 maybe. Sorry. You couldn't, 1968. You couldn't be married and have a full-time job. You had to quit. You had to leave your job if you got married because your husband will now support you. And she said there were certain ones they could do. Nurses, that's why a lot of nurses were nuns, because women who chose not to marry and lived a life of the Lord, they could keep working. So that's why nurses, being female, continued to exist, because they were nuns. And then all young women who hadn't married yet. I'm not sure of the rule exactly in 1968. Like, could a woman still nurse part-time but just had to quit full-time? I don't know. Mum wasn't a nurse, but she had a full-time job. She had to quit it because she got married. She's like, that was the law and the rules. And I'm like, that's so weird that the country said, you have a husband, you have to serve him now. I would have been like, yeehaw, I'm not working. Frick yeah. I've got to clean the house anyway. Like, every relationship I've been in, they do nothing, weaponized incompetence. So it's like, so I've got to do what I'm already doing anyway? Sweet. I just don't have to work. Like, but I can see how not having a choice is the oppression. That's the oppressive part. I just love not working. I love not working. But then you'd be stuck at home. And in those days they had low fences. All the wives were like friends. It was a different culture. It was, people would knock on each other's door. It was more community. It was so different back then. So nowadays you'd be so isolated because of the internet and everything. Anyway, so that's how it was, which is why I believe women's jobs were paid less, because one, you were encouraged to get married and be supported by a man. So if you're like a nurse and you're working full time, like, well, you're not married, well, that's not good. The society wants you to go get married, so we're not going to pay you lots or something. Two, if you are doing some little job on the side while being married or something, I don't know if they're allowed part-time. I'm so sorry, I haven't really looked into this, but it's food for thought. Maybe someone should look into this and like talk about it, who has a brain and actually wants to research before they start running their mouth on a tangent. Maybe someone who's like professional. Anyway, so my theory is that women were paid less than men because women's income was seen as pocket money. It was seen as, a little bit of pocket money, so you buy yourself a nice dress, a bit of new lipstick. It was never seen as something where you have to support your family. So me being a nurse, I was always paid less than a tradesman, yet I went to uni, got a bachelor degree. Every shift I was on, I had people's lives literally in my hands. Like, the things I did and the high stress job and the dealing with the public alone, whereas a man might put a door on or, do electrical stuff or something, which is very important and should be rewarded. However, being paid 1/3, like 3 times less. Like, I've seen the pay a lot of tradesmen get. Yeah, getting paid so much less and having to have a bachelor degree, pay off the bachelor degree, not get paid during the degree, work for free during the degree while they get paid to learn. I've just kind of seen that, well, women were still viewed as, well, you've got a man at home who has a full-time income that is set to raise a family with. What you get is pocket money. So it was never valued. And so we've got these awards that are based on those initial awards, and they give you little pay rises, but they've not been a big jump that says, hey, when are we going to get equal kind of thing. And so now, like, so many women, like myself, are raising families with our female dominated industry income. And yes, women are getting into trades and everything. They're not treated the best, which is really sad, but it is shifting and shifting slowly. So things are moving, and that's what these rallies were about, that things are not moving and it's actually going in a decline, the whole violence against women thing. So the politicians have to step in and make some reforms, make some changes that are due. But as we've all been thinking, these changes are going so slowly. Society is slowly changing for the better. We're all educating ourselves on feminism and women being people. And maybe it's the men killing us because they're just these weak, insecure. Like, it, once you see past a narcissist, you sort of just see the weakest little insecure, like a baby bird that shouldn't have come out of the shell yet. Like, mentally, that's what they're like. Oh, no wonder they are struggling to let women be equal, because having that power meant they didn't have to do anything. They didn't have to think, learn, care. They just went along easy as easy. A lot of jobs. I've done male-dominated jobs and they're so easy, so low stress. The male-dominated jobs I've done when I've left my work to try other careers. And maybe they're scared, hey, we might have to actually step up and be equal on our side as well. Like, it would be scary times if you just imagine, like, pet dogs, right? Pet dogs. We have pet dogs and cats and stuff. Imagine if pet dogs were now given the same rights as humans, and they could, I know, I guess they'd have to be able to talk or something, but your pet, like, we oppress our pets, like we control our pets, like they don't have any rights. Imagine if now, just say they could speak, because that would really help in this scenario, and they had rights to get money, have jobs, have a car, have all this. Things would change for us. Things would change so much for so many people, especially bad people. Like, for me, I'd think, yes, I'm glad my dog has rights, and I would embrace them through that shift and through that change, because I think they deserve a right, especially if they could speak. I mean, the fact that a dog is mute lets people get away with so much. Like, imagine if they could tell you what they really thought. Abusive people are lucky dogs are mute. Let's just say that. But anyway, it's that analogy. Like, if dogs had rights, who would hate that the most? You know who'd hate that? The men or people who abuse animals, because, oh shit, I'm going to have to stop doing that. I'm going to have to stop, or the people who arrange fights, illegal fights with animals, or do something to take advantage of animals and use animals. They're going to struggle the most because they're getting the most out of oppressing and abusing the animals now that they have rights. And so that's a way a woman can kind of look at it. Like, we're above a dog. Well, some men don't think so, but in our rights we are. And so if dogs suddenly got rights, how would you feel? You'd feel good. You'd feel all right, because you think, oh, I love dogs. But you know there's a lot of people that don't love dogs. A lot of people that fear dogs because they know that dogs are beautiful. You know they are the most loving, kind, sweet things, most of them. And, well, generally they are. Just be nice to them. So it's kind of like women. Literally, be nice. Anyway, so I can see that this change would make those weak, insecure, horrible, abusive, nasty people shiver in their boots. And is the change why men are killing us more? Because they're just full of emotion and they can't control their shit? I don't know, but they are. And so we had the rallies on the weekend. We had amazing speakers and a politician, Yvette, who got up there and said what we were all thinking, and it was brilliant. Then we had the male politician in the crowd hiding, not saying a word, just there for a photo op. And yes, he got photos taken that ended up in the media because that's why he was there, to tick a box. But he did not look comfortable. he was shitting. He's standing like right near me and he was shitting himself. And the fact that they feel uncomfortable in that scenario is kind of like hints at some, like, just check yourself, check your place in the world. Just how are things for you and the women in your life? And he might go home and be a bit like, educated about it, hopefully, and, respect his wife and anyone in his life. I don't really know about his personal life, sorry. But yeah, it was amazing. So what happened on the day? So there was a rally where there were speakers and everyone's standing around with their signs. And I had a sign. uh, I don't know if I probably shouldn't say what it said. No, I won't, because I'm trying to hide from bad people. But, a lot of us had signs and people come up and take pictures and talk to you. And so many survivors talk to each other. And there were just these powerful conversations where people just come up to you after you're reading your sign or something and have a conversation like it happened to them too, or someone else. I had like a foster mother come up and say, I've got to foster this baby because the mother has gone through DV. I don't know if the mother's like alive and stuck in a DV relationship and not leaving, so she's had the baby taken, or if something's physically happened to her. I don't know the situation, but she's like, you're so brave, and she made me cry. She didn't make you cry. People don't make people cry. She said some lovely things and I cried. And then we just all kept crying so much during the day. In the march, like half of us were like teary and the other half were angry. And because being heard, being listened to, I mean, we would walk, you could see men who happened to be walking on the street, you just knew they hated us. You knew they were like looking at us like, you're all crazy, nutso feminists, like fuck off. You just knew that, like you felt that. The police working there just really were like, I don't want to be here. A lot of them just had that vibe. Like some of them were nice, I'm sure, but yeah. But you could just see it. We've got a ways to go, but I mean, that's why we're protesting. But we did do the march after that initial rally and went around this whole block of the city. Got the steps in, was good, but we did that, and then we came back and the rally continued. And I just thought, I'm so glad we're in Australia, because if this is America, I reckon we would have got shot. Like, no shit. I reckon if men had more access to guns, I actually thought of it before I went. I thought, we're actually at risk today, like, especially with a man going to the shops and murdering as many women as he could find with a knife. If we had guns, I would not put it past misogynistic, unwell men to turn up to something like that and just start opening fire. Like, literally, we are so lucky we have gun laws here. Yes, people can still get guns illegally, but it's not as easy as walking into Walmart kind of thing. In here, it would be what? Woolies? Walk into Woolies, grab a gun, show your ID, grab a gun, boom. Show a fake ID, grab a gun, boom. I don't know how they do it, but yeah, stuff like that. Like, it's not. Do they even have to show ID in America? Anyway, tangent, not going there. But I actually thought of that. So we were lucky that we were safe and nothing like that did happen, because that definitely could have, because I know it would have made a lot of abusive men angry, very angry. And you just saw men walking past and just looking at us like they're just pissed off. But then you saw other people who happened to be in the city that day, and they'd take pictures. But another good thing about men, though, they're, for the first time ever that I've ever seen at women's things, because I've been to another DV thing, and the only men who were there were the police officers who were paid to be there. And the ones who are paid to be there, they get paid a special, so they get higher, like more money when it's a special. So they were paid to be there. So they were the only males there. It was all women. And going to that was a few years ago. was so disappointing that it was just women talking about it, about how do we stop men doing this when we're women? We can't. They control us. Then there was all that time they laid out all the shoes for the women who'd been murdered so far that year, and I looked at the clips of that, and that was all just women and very angry looking men walking past. And you'd see men in the background just walking past, and just all women were at the thing. And I was just like, how can we do anything if it's just like they're not listening? The men who do this don't listen to women. But what I can tell you from the rallies that we had on the weekend and the Brisbane one from yesterday, we had men walking with us for the first time that I've ever seen. There were men leading the march. There were men shouting, and they had signs. There were men with signs. I've put a picture of a man sign saying it's on us, men, or something. It's in my TikTok. There were men passionately defending. There were wives who brought their husbands. Granted, some may have been dragged along, but they came along. They came. They weren't ashamed to be walking with their wife for this. There were relatives of deceased women who were murdered by their partners. There were, like, I turned around and I saw men and I felt emotional because I thought, I've never seen a man at anything like this before. And now there's a few. And I'm hoping that next time, hopefully we don't have to keep doing this, but that's life, that's the world we live in. Next time, in a year or two, or whenever we do this again, there'll be even more men. And slowly things will change, but just seeing some men there touched me. Like, I wanted to run up to every single one of them and hug them and say, thank you, thank you, thank you for being here. But again, we got to watch that. And you're like, what do you mean? I see a lot of men on social media getting, oh my gosh, thank you so much. You have a penis and you spoke and said nothing nasty about a woman. Wow, you're a hero. And men love that. They're getting off on that. And so, I don't know, like, men, I mean, yeah, we're trying to encourage men to do that, encourage men to do better. But when we treat them like freaking rock stars and gods, because, oh, wow, you didn't abuse me just then. Wow, you actually spoke on behalf of me and said something nice about women. Wow, you're amazing. Like, I get, like, it's like they're little dogs. We're trying to train them. Like, please, if we give you positive reinforcement, will you treat us better? Like, that's a thought I've had. And it is a hard one. It's hard because it's like, well, we've got to encourage the men who are doing good and speaking on behalf of women and sharing feminist content. We have to praise them. And the men marching with us, we have to say thank you and praise them because we want to encourage that and thank them for that. Because there is still that shift where some men seeing them do that might be like, oh, you pussy, there's a name they call them, but I'm not even going to say it. I don't even care. But they just treat them crap and bully them but that's how the change is coming. Like, it's not cool to be the douchebag bullying the guy anymore. So, yeah, we've got to encourage them, but at the same time, where's the line where men and then, like, especially like narcissist type men are using kind of women, like they kind of like getting off on that and like, oh wow, I'm treated so good. Like, there was one man's TikTok, it was so good what he said, and we just know that men seeing that will be so valuable. And everyone liked it and everything. But in the comments, he's like, oh my gosh, I've never had so many compliments in my life. You're all so kind. Like, in the love in the comments, you don't see that on a woman's post that says the exact same words in the exact same tone, exact same body language, everything. Like, she could do exact same thing. You just see hate in women's comments. And then a few women saying, yes, I agree and stuff. But the men just get so much praise and worship from women. And I guess that's just how the world is. Like, we do have to positively reinforce them helping us by speaking to other men. But at the same time, they're getting it's just that same, it's a man's world. Like, a man says a feminist thing, he's a freaking hero. A woman says a feminist thing, she's a problem, a troublemaker. a dirty hippie, a feral, a mentally ill psychopath. She's a nut job. She's a troublemaker. She's a witch. She's deranged and a problem, saying the exact same things as a man, but a man says that he's a hero. So, of course, they're going to love the attention. So it's a tricky one. It's a tricky one because I saw one there and they were definitely loving the attention. Like they were, but I mean, we got to train them like dogs. Like if we've got to like, good boy. If we have to do that, I guess, I mean, if it gets the job done, but we can pat ourselves on the back as well. We've always put ourselves down, and so many women said the same thing yesterday, that like talking to other women in the crowd and people going around going, I believe you, and someone on the speaker said that as a speech, I believe you. And like everyone just got emotional at that because a lot of us are silent about what's happened to us, and a lot of us, try not to go on about it or anything. And, we're then told, oh, we believe you. And yeah, like just being acknowledged was so much for us. And if men could really see, like really open their eyes and see what it's like for us, things would be so, so, so different. So coming off of yesterday, the march, when I went to Brisbane City in Queens Sunshine, Queensland, for the march, coming back off that, I feel a lot of emotion, and I know other people would have felt that for the day or so after. There were women who said, yeah, this is heavy today. It's like a PTSD trigger, but it's worth it. There was even one part where they're like talking about holding hands. We all held hands. And, it was just really good just to, we've all been abused. I met someone who'd nearly been murdered like me, and she was really feeling it as well. And we just knew that we were going to really feel it for a few days. It's like a PTSD trigger. People come up and ask questions, and you had to talk about things and go over things. And so it was really PTSD trigger day. But we had to sort of go through that to get the message across. I think everybody that was there, like there was so many thousands and thousands and thousands turned up across Australia, thousands. I could not believe it. I turned around because I was at the front of the march and I turned around and just saw an entire long street in the city filled with people, signs and people, like you couldn't even see the end, like it kept going around the bend. Like there was so many people, and each person attending and the men attending as well was why the politicians went, oh, so you know what came of the rally? What came of the rally that we did was that Prime Minister, the one that talked over the woman, ignored her after she said that he lied. That wonderful human, he announced a state of emergency for the women being murdered by men. Actually, this is a tangent, but totally important. I saw on TikTok someone talking about the one punch thing. So this is very important because it kind of bounces off that, because it's like, oh, it's a state of emergency now. Like we actually are going to do something and care. And, we lost 73 women at the hands of men last year, and we've lost 30 something this year. It's hard to keep up with the number. It was 31, that was 32. And literally during the marches over the weekend when we marched, one or two more women were murdered. And if you're like overseas, you're like, oh my gosh, we get like millions per day or something. Our population is not that high. We're quite spread out. Not many really live in the middle. Whereas in America, I've traveled and people live in the middle. We didn't populate the middle because we're like, oh, it's so dry. Imagine getting plumbing out there, like, oh, too hard. I'm not even going to bother. Like, people do live out there, getting plumbing out there. People live there, but very tiny towns, like very outback, like no one's, like there's not much going on. We have a city in the middle called Alice Springs, but it's not really a city. And it's going through very high crime, like issues and stuff right now, but that's attention. So, state of emergency, because the numbers are just going up, and men, they're just not stopping. So the best point was brought up on a TikTok. Oh, I should have shared it. I don't know if I did. They said that the one punch thing years ago, laws came in, big changes were made. So one punch thing was men would go out clubbing and drinking and whatnot, and then they'd get in a fight and some would die. Or I actually had a patient when I was a young nurse who had become a vegetable from a one punch attack. And a one punch attack means you can punch someone that hard in the head, they drop to the ground and die because you hit them at a specific spot, you hit them hard enough, and then they hit the ground as well, that they can die. And that's what happened to this patient. They died. They had a cardiac arrest on the scene. They were revived, but their brain was gone. And it was the most heartbreaking, one of the most heartbreaking things I've ever seen as a nurse in my whole career. But so people could die getting into scraps outside of clubs and bars and getting king hit, they call it, by another man. So I decided to look up the statistics on how many men or people died from these one punch attacks compared to the numbers of how many women are being murdered by their partners. Now, just keep in mind, the men who went out clubbing, went out to the bars or whatever, and ended up in these fights, and we don't know whose fault, who started or whatever like that, but they were never asked, why were you there? What were you wearing? Like, why did you go out that night? Like, there was a lot of shock and horror for what was going on. We had rules come in where nightclubs had to close at a certain time now. Like back in the day, we'd go clubbing and all the clubs were like open till 5 a.m. You'd walk out and the sun's up and you'd just feel gross. The birds are chirping and and you're just like, I don't feel so good now that I've heard birds chirping and I've seen the sun coming up. Like, and you're in your high heels and your makeup. Oh, you just feel, but that's how it was. And now clubs have lockout rules where after a certain hour of the night, once you've left, you can't come back in because they found that a lot of people were going out and leaving and then like being like even drunker and like coming back to start trouble or something, and really they should go home or something. So and I think it's also like a lockout rule, like if someone's been kicked out or something as well, like once you've left, you've got to go home kind of thing. So there's a time when they do that and now times when they have to close and everything. And it's really changed. A lot of change came in, change with the laws, change with the sentencing around it and everything like that. So politicians went nuts and changed all these laws and stuff, all right? So the statistics. And the statistics actually say a lot of the things included in these statistics are domestic. So they've actually stolen some DV kind of stats to mix in there as well. So they've included men killing women with brain injuries and stuff with in some of their stats. So we've got to like realize the number's actually lower when we're talking about one punch attacks, men on men. How many a year do you think? In 22 years, 170 Australians died from, they call it coward punch assaults. The most ever in a whole entire year, which they go on about as being astronomical, was 44. But generally, it was about 6 a year in some years. There was 14 in one year, 6 in another years, and the most in any year was 44, and that was the highest it ever got. 73 women were murdered last year. Government did nothing. And that was in 1 year. To get to 170, that would have been, well, this year we're already up to 30-something women and it's only April. So we're looking at much higher this year, maybe 90 or something, I don't know. A woman dies every 4 days. So 170 over 22 years. Okay, let's do the math. Face ID. Look, getting into the iPhone. 170 divided by 22 years, 7.7 a year. And the amount of things that happened in politics, laws, change, everything. Like it was this huge thing. Like the rules around bars and everything is changed forever. Like clubbing is not ever going to, and they put so much tax on alcohol as well. Like we had dollar drinks back in the day, and there was violence, but I don't know. The media just sort of latched onto it more. Like, I don't know what happened. Like, it's not good. Like, things do need changing. Like, but no one should be dying. Don't get me wrong. Every time a woman compares something that is a man's experience to her own, doesn't mean she's putting down his. Like, they still need to change things. No one should be, like, it's absolutely horrific. Like, I've never forgotten that patient. Like, that was absolutely horrible. It's so bad that is violence in clubs and bars and stuff like that, and outside in the streets afterwards and whatnot. It shouldn't be happening, but we're just comparing the response when men are dying compared to females, and that's 7 a year, and they actually said in this, and some of that is domestic violence stuff. So it's not 7 men a year. It's less than that. And it's like major change happened. We've got 73 a year last year. Will be more this year because by this time last year it was not this many. 73 women in a year, and the government still wouldn't do anything. Now we've all marched, and I think the politicians, like the Prime Minister, saw there were men joining the march, and they're like, uh-oh, I might have to care now because there might be men who don't want to vote for me. Oh, and I don't like women, but they are allowed to vote now. So, and there's thousands in every city marching. Maybe we might have to look like we're going to do something. So they've announced it as an emergency, and they're having a special meeting on Wednesday. Do we think they're going to make real change? No. The funding, they don't have enough prisons. And that's a big thing. So they have to let a lot of people out on bail who shouldn't be out on bail. They've even said, they've actually admitted, if we put every man that tried to kill a woman in prison, there would be there'd just be overflowing. Like, we'd have to build more prisons. That's the point. Build more prisons. And here's the thing. You don't want them coming back to prison and costing the government more money. How about while they're in prison, you do therapy programs? Oh, no, we wouldn't do that. We just lock them in there and hope that they've learnt their lesson by being excluded from society. No. Men are broken. Men need therapy. If I did a bad crime, I would need therapy because I've chosen to do a bad crime. I obviously wasn't well. Like, I wasn't thinking well straight, was I? This whole notion that like serial killers, murderers and stuff aren't mentally ill. You're not well if you're doing that kind of stuff. You do need therapy, and therapy doesn't always help, but they could have programs, group programs, and then randomly one-on-one therapy time, but group programs where men speak about their feelings in front of other men. That would be a huge thing because a lot of the men that end up in prison, they're not doing that in front of other men, and they have these group programs that go around all the prisons and are designed to change the values in men. And a lot of them, of course, they're still going to have those values. Of course, a lot of them are like narcissists, psychopaths. You're not going to change them so much, but that can't freaking hurt. And it actually will help in some ways to actually have a space where men can, cry in a group setting, talk about feelings, and undo some of that toxic masculinity, some of it. It will help. It will help in some ways. But they just lock them away from society and think, well, that's a punishment. You're not allowed to be out and about and do what you want right now, so you'll learn your lesson. That doesn't teach them a lesson. Therapy. Men are broken. They need it. So, and I just say men are broken. Like, I'm sick of having to go, oh, well, not all men, and because you don't want to offend someone. If women were killing 73 men a year, I would say, oh yeah, we're fucked. We are so fucked. We're fucking nuts. Like, we've lost it. Like, that is so bad. Like, I'd be marching with the men saying, stop freaking killing. Like, it's not hard to be a decent human being, but, The insecure, weak ones that are like fearful, so fearful, they're going to project and they're going to be pretty nasty. So we're in for a fight, but our generation, future generations are going to look back at the photos of this weekend and photos of weekends like this and marches and rallies like this overseas in other countries, in your country, in all the countries. People are going to historically look back at that time the way we look back at the suffragettes. Only reason I know what a suffragette is because I was a fan of Mary Poppins when I was a child. And she, talk about being a suffragette and sing about it in Mary Poppins. And so we look back at that. We look back at these women that chained themselves to a bar in Brisbane back in the day when women weren't allowed in a men's bar. There was a main bar that was all nice for men and this tiny little one around the corner where women could have a drink but must be separate to men. And these women went, stuff this. I don't know if it's 60s or 70s or something, or 80s. I don't know. Anyway, they went, stuff this. We're going to the men's bar. They went to the men's bar. They chained themselves to the bar and went, we're not going. They got abused by the men, shreds torn off them. But they got this historical photo of them doing that and standing up saying, this is so unfair. It's like this racial segregation that used to exist. The photos of people fighting for rights, LGBTQI rights, the marches, the protests, the fights. This is a period of time that while we're frustrated to be stuck in it, we're frustrated because the change isn't coming quick enough and we're losing lives. That future generations will thank us. Or they might not because, they won't understand how bad it was. But this is a historical time where things are going to change. We might not see it in our lifetime, but we are setting the precedent for future generations for a world that's going to be so different and so better. So we are part of that historical change. So if you posed for a photo, or maybe you didn't pose, someone took it of your poster or something on the weekend, if you were at one of these rallies in Australia or anywhere in the world, they do happen often, unfortunately, we have to. If you've had your photo taken, you may go down in some history place as a photo of someone who was there making change. So thank you. So anyone who went to any of those rallies, thank you. Every head counted, every person that was there is a voice, is a vote. And the politicians saw it. In fact, somebody said that the Prime Minister didn't get up and speak until somebody said, the election's coming up soon. And they said that's when he got up, even though it was arranged that he probably wouldn't or something because he'd declined beforehand or some other thing. But no matter what the reason before or what happened beforehand, what we witnessed, the way he treated that lady while talking in front of everyone, like she didn't exist. It's just like, dude, that's what we're talking about. That's a person next to you. I know it's not a man. I know she might not be Pamela Anderson. Because men also have this precedent, like if you're not good looking, if you're not aesthetically pleasing in their eye for what they want the fake tan, they want the fake boobs, they want the fake lips, they want the fake everything, they want the bleached hair, they want this and that, and blah, blah, blah. If you aren't good looking in their eyes, they also believe they don't have to respect you. If a woman is overweight, they believe they don't have to respect her. If she doesn't shave, they believe in certain areas that men would like women to shave, they believe they don't have to respect her. If a woman had PCOS and grew hair or on her face somewhere and decided not to shave it or something, they would think, well, we don't have to respect her. She's not a person. She doesn't count because she's not serving us. Men believe they only have to respect women who are serving them, either physically serving them at home, serving them with sexual pleasure, serving them with looking good. If you are happy to be obese and not be attractive, then a man thinks, well, I don't have to treat you well because you don't look sexually appealing to me. What a how dumb. What a fucked view. So, and you just saw that in the Prime Minister, that he just completely fobbed her off, you don't exist to me. And it was this tiny little interaction, but it said so much. And I love that people are sharing that online and saying, hey, this, when the problem comes from the top, it's like, okay, when you're in a toxic workplace, if you have a toxic boss, the whole place is fucked. You'd know this. If the boss, and they say it comes from the top, If people at the top are assholes and toxic and bad, it filters right all the way down. And when I've worked in really good workplaces and the people at the top are really nice, communicate, listen, have time for people, empathy, they're really amazing people, you see that filter through and it's a much better place to work. Same as living in a country. When the leaders at the top are misogynists and pretend they're not really badly, like you couldn't even fake it. You could not even fake being a feminist for a day. Like all these men who went to these rallies as politicians to try and get votes could not even fake giving a fuck. Like they're just looking so uneasy and just, and the one that got the photo on left, like, mate, oh. Anyway, but we had amazing female politician Yvette. I mean, the fact that she's female, why can't a male politician say what she said? Why can't a male say, I'm sick of hearing about men I know doing this? A man could stand up and say, what Bruce Lerman did was freaking disgusting, and I'm sorry, ladies, that men do stuff like that on behalf of all men. Like, why could a man not get up there and say the same thing? Because the men in Australia have been raised with misogynistic values. They all have that. They all think the same. They can't lie. I mean, politicians lie every day, but they're really struggling with the pretending to give a crap about women. You can see them squirming. Oh, you should have seen old mate. He looks so uncomfortable. But he was there. But we know they're there for their own personal interest. They're there to get votes. And it's like if you were here, as in you really actually cared, you'd be up there on the mic. You'd be saying, oh, look, I know the hashtag, the whole not all men thing, but I'm a male and I'm so sorry to each and every one of you. How hard is it to get up and say one sentence? Or like act like, oh, anyway. Anyway, it's hard because they do not like women. The wives who serve them at home that they're probably cheating on because they're Bruce Lermaning in the offices, having sex with women. Maybe there's this whole thing where they bring women back to the freaking Parliament House place to have sex or something. Maybe there's a whole culture where they cheat on their wives at work. Oh, who knows? Freaking men. And as usual, when I say freaking men, I don't mean the kings that came out with this yesterday. I don't mean the men who are starting to switch on and listen and becoming feminists. I don't mean any of that. And they are the kings and they are coming with us and supporting us and helping bring us forward into equality. They are amazing. Like nearly brought to tears yesterday seeing the men that came. Even the ones who reluctantly came. You were there. That means so much, so much. So when women go, oh man, please know, we are saying, oh man, when we say that, we mean the general population of men who have raped us, who have assaulted us, who in many of our cases, who have tried to unalive us. Sorry, I don't have to say unalive, it's not on TikTok, murder us. That's what we're referring to. The men who yell at us on the streets, the majority. But because of great men like you, we won't be going, oh, men, in time, because it won't be the majority in time. Soon it'll be like 30-70, 80-20, 30-70, and one day 50-50. Soon it won't be the majority. So as the male population improves in their respect for women, we will not be going, oh, men. We'll be going, oh, those horrible men that sometimes exist. Oh, those ones. We won't be just going, oh, man. So when we say anything like that, please know we are not. We are generalizing because it is the majority. It is still the majority, but we see you, we hear, we thank you. It was so good. Anyway, that's it. I have talked all the things about the rally and gone on tangents, but that cow punch one is such food for thought. Such food for thought. 7 a year over 22 years. And man, oh my gosh, it hit 40. What the hell? Let's just turn the world upside down. And yes, some of those were women who were coward punched by a man and murdered by, so if we take those out, it's just the nightclubby man on man punch. or whatever reason they were punching someone, like robbing people, like some were like really bad situations. But a lot of the victims were men. The majority of victims were men, and that's where it's coming from. Hey, when the majority of victims are men and there's 7 a year over 22 years, and 1 year it hits 40, you actually like change the whole freaking world. And not 40 men, but majority were men. So get 73 last year, and the politicians were like, and what did those women do? What were they wearing? Did they not do what their husband said? Well, they should. Did they speak out? And I know I've said it before, but domestic violence is not a woman speaking against her husband and being like a troublemaker, nagging, or anything. That's what we were raised to think by the patriarchy. That's not what it is. They are calculated, planned, and it is this psychological warfare torture on a victim. It is not triggered by the victim's behavior because a lot of these men have many victims in a row. They don't, yeah. So I'm not going to get into that further. Thank you for listening. I know today was very challenging to listen to because I really felt it was all over the place. And I'm going to try and pull that in now. Like I've actually made a decision to try and rein it in. So hopefully today's the last super messy one and we get a bit neater from now on. ADHD. I started the non-stimulant medication, Strattera. I haven't had it yet today. Oops. But being a non-stimulant, whatevs. Is it doing anything? It gives me this weird, nervous, wired energy in the afternoons. And then I crash, like I'm tired at night. So I am sleeping better. But I do shift work, so I have to watch what time of day I take it as to whether I can be awake or not, because when you get tired, you get really tired. But being a non-stimulant is good because, I am sleeping. But I don't know. I'm just going to see how it goes. I think the nervous energy thing I get in the afternoon, it's great because I'm motivated. I'm actually motivated. I do some things, which gets me out of that kind of non-motivation-y bleh. But it's like this nervous energy, like this weird, and it's like, am I going to come across as some weird, anxious, nervousy, weird person every afternoon? I don't know. But I do like that it does make me do things. I haven't had it today. That's why I'm like, I'm speaking. It's hard to speak. But again, it's not a stimulant. So it doesn't stimulate me. But yeah, nothing. I was still ADHD AF. In fact, in the afternoon when it wires me for sound, wired for sound. If you're old, you know that song. If you're young, you're missing out. Google it. Wired for sound. Sorry, I'm distracted by that song and now it's in my head. It's not un-ADHDing me, unfortunately. It's giving me motivation, which I guess not having dopamine and all the things, dopamine chasing, like it's better in that. Like I'm not dopamine seeking as bad. I'm more motivated. I'm doing things. So that's really good life improvement, but it's giving me that nervous energy kind of thing. And ADHD, we're all about like our brains are going so freaking fast. We're all over the place. We're tensioning. We're this and that. So I've just got to see if it's actually helping with that. It is making me numb though. Like there's people I want to message, right? I think, oh, I've got to message them and I've got to do this and that. And then I just sort of go, why? I'm not going to. Whatever. Who cares? No one cares about me. Whatever. I'm not going to bother. Just like this numb weirdness. Like just sort of giving up on you people in the world. I don't know. It's weird. I'm like, yeah, I've got to message them. And then I'm like, I'm not going to bother. It's so weird. Numb. People say it can make you numb, this one. And I don't want to be numb. Although I don't like feelings, like too many feelings. I wouldn't want to be emotional like a man. I wouldn't be hysterical like a man. Like wouldn't want to punch a wall, like plasterboard. Like why would you want to punch that? I wouldn't want to go that far. So Maybe we should just put drugs in the water for the men so that they don't have to like kill people when they have some feelings. Not all men. Okay, on that note, I'm going to go. Thanks for getting through this. You are a champion. You're a legend. Email me. liabfpodcast@gmail.com. Anything you want. Tell me your story. Tell me what happened to you. Because I still like, even yesterday, it was so, okay, sorry. I know, I don't shut up. But, shush, stop talking. I don't shut up. But even yesterday with all those people there, all sharing stories, all have been like, all have been through stuff. Or the few men that were supporting women to be through stuff. Like all those people there, so many survivors, so many people who hadn't survived. There were roses there to signify the women just lost this year, so from January to April, like not about the women last year, the year before, like just this year. There were roses representing this. So there were so many people who'd been through similar to me. Yet we've been kind of conditioned to be silent about it and think you're the only one. Like I still have this whole and this other girl was saying that too. Like we think we're the only ones. We think it's our fault. We think we're taught to sort of stay quiet and ashamed about it. And then you come together and you're like, this many people have been affected by male violence. This many. It's not just me. I'm not mad and crazy like I thought, like society teaches us to be. There are thousands and thousands of people. Like, it just goes to show how much of an issue it is and how from the patriarchy and what men have like conditioned us to think as a society is to be quiet about it. Be quiet about it. We don't want people knowing what we're doing to you. And now that we're not, we're like, wait a minute. Yes, there was such a you too. Oh, and you, and you, and you. All of us, thousands in every capital city, except Darwin, sorry, have been abused by men, and a lot of us nearly lost our lives, and like tortured by men, like raped by men, multiple times to an individual woman, thousands of times over. Oh, well, now we're not being quiet about it. We're realizing it's all women. And I thought it was just, they just said that to shut us up. They just implied that it was just us and we're crazy and we're all alone. Or just me and the few people I met in a DV group once. No, it's actually all #yes, all women. What? There are thousands turning up, and they're the people who turn up. Wow. Huge. Okay. This is it. I promise you. Stay safe, but it's not on you to stay safe. Men, stop abusing women. Legends. Bye.